r/AskReddit. When did the class clown take it too far? Senior year. Teacher wouldn't give her a hall pass to use the bathroom, which was ridiculous. Instead of taking a more conventional stand, like walking out of the room, she sat down in her desk and pissed her pants. She was suspended. I forget for how long. There were editorials back and forth in the school paper. I was on team teachers shouldn't try to control our bowels, but also maybe don't piss on the floor. Though I do appreciate your taking one for the team. He loaded up porn on someone's computer while they were in the bathroom. Teacher wasn't paying attention and the victim ended up getting suspended. Junior year in high school in Algebra 2. The teacher was kind of a douche, so this one guy, let's call him Mike, would give him a hard time. This was a regular thing. And Mike would get kicked out of class for saying and doing some inappropriate stuff, but we all thought it was hilarious. One day, our teacher didn't show up to class. Word got around that his oldest son had died of a drug overdose, and he had to take some personal time off. He didn't show back up until a week later, and he looked really sullen and down. During class, Mike pulled out a can of Coca-Cola and started sipping it nonchalantly. Teacher had a strict no eating or drinking in class policy and Mike was aware of this. He told Mike to throw it away and step outside. Mike, the absolute ducking savage, says, "Look, I know you don't like Coke, but I'm sure your son did." Nobody laughed. Just silence. Some people didn't get it. The ones who did were just too shocked to say anything like me. Mike threw his drink away and walked out of the classroom while the teacher just sort of haphazardly continued his lesson, although we could tell Mike's comment ducked him up. This one kid thought it would be funny to snort a line of that sour powder. This was no small line, mind you. I actually think he was rubbing it off the candy. Anyways, he does his line and instantly starts screaming. His nose was gushing blood and I honestly think he popped a blood vessel in his eye. Ran out of the room and later saw an ambulance come to the school. Don't do drugs. When he ate part of the squid we were dissecting. Stomach pump for you. Chuckles. My high school class clown made a joke in a dead silent classroom about boning a teacher with another teacher in the room. His situation afterwards wasn't great. There was a class clown in my class and another one from the senior class at the time. They'd collaborated to throw toilet paper all over the schoolyard as a joke. I forget exactly what it was, but there was some kind of very important event going on that day and we were supposed to have a lot of visitors that afternoon. The principal was not amused. He said if they'd done that on any other day, he'd probably just let it go after making them clean it up. They got detention, and one of the teachers made them personally apologize to the elderly janitor who had to clean that hit up in the dark when it was freezing cold. He farted loudly every single day in Mr. Jensen's social studies class. It got really old. We had a teacher in middle school who had a wig and a glass eye. We had 3 class clowns that teamed up, and at the end of the year, she left just because of their constant disruptions and bullying. I actually really liked her and always felt bad for her. Called our teacher's daughter, whose name is Maya. Maya Khalifa. The teacher then proceeded to search up Maya Khalifa in front of the whole class. Had her old Gary. Well, he always used to tease this gay kid and everyone dared him to kiss him as a dare. The ducker is still running the joke today, even got married to him. Gary knows how to do the long haul when he takes things too far. Can't wait until the big joke reveal and everyone laughs. He tried to pants the teacher. Ate a hit ton of notebook paper and ended up going home after he projectile vomited on the goddamn floor. When I was in 3rd grade we were all doing our thing. Coloring, reading, etc. The class clown was being really noisy and kept goofing off. We were all having fun and the class clown eventually sat down. It wasn't long before he was laying on the floor, foaming out of his mouth, shaking violently. We all laughed. It was a joke, right? Before long the teacher came rushing over to see the new joke the kid came up with. She immediately called 911 and he was rushed out of the room. He had a seizure while the whole class thought he was joking. He recovered and everything was fine. I just feel bad for the kid. Straight up just peed on the floor in the middle of class and convinced the teacher it was spilled water, so he cleaned it up. Honestly, not even class clown hit at that point. Just being a gross peen. He didn't get in nearly enough trouble. When he yelled I lost my virginity to my dog. During a quiet moment in class. Every head whipped around to stare in horror. AHHH. A wasp. He then proceeded to throw an entire ducking desk at it. The wasp perched on the window. Whoops. Someone in my year at school, who wanted to be a doctor, drank a bottle of antibacterial hand wash for $5. He did it because there is nothing bad in there, his words. Needless to say, he got his stomach pumped. This kid downed 9 ibuprofens in like 3 minutes because the teacher left the room. He managed to get a headache from it. It wasn't really funny. It was just sad. One time the class clown asked what the teacher's wife, another teacher, was like in bed. It was so goddamn awkward. Kid, class clown, in elementary school made fun of a boy no one liked. He was kinda an asshole, but one day the boy said his mom had a miscarriage and the other kid thought it would be a great insult later in the week to tell him something along the lines of your brother is better off dead, it's a good thing your mom had a miscarriage, don't think we've ever rallied for this asshole kid as hard as we did that day. Not cool. Kid in my band class still thought Yo Mama jokes were funny. We came back to school for the first time after Hurricane Sandy. And the kid goes to the teacher. Yo Mama res, and the teacher cuts him off, died in the hurricane. The kid never told another one of those jokes in that class. I was at an all-state music festival, basically a concert band that students from the entire state audition to perform in during high school. And during some downtime between pieces during the rehearsal, the conductor asked if anyone wanted to come up and say a joke into the mic. One of the percussionists raises his hand, walks up, and tells the following joke. What do you call a kid with no friends? A Sandy Hook survivor. I absolutely could not believe what I heard. This was just weeks or maybe a few months after the shooting. I don't remember if anyone laughed. I don't think they did. And he definitely got a stern talking to when he took the razor out of a pencil sharpener and threatened to slit the black girl's throat. Teacher wasn't in the room and we were all just staring at him like, what the actual duck? Man. I never saw him again after that day. My sophomore year of high school. It was an English class and there were 4 class clowns in the same class. Second semester of school. So it was shortly after I'd been switched from one teacher's class to the new one. During the first semester, there was a student a grade below us that had committed suicide. And the year before that my cousin had done the same. Teacher walked out of the classroom to take something to get printed or something and left the only senior in the class in charge. Both she and I were close to the deceased freshman's family and had struggled with his death together. Not a minute after the teacher left, 2 of the clowns got up and went over to the windows, grabbed the pull string to the blinds, and used it as a noose to hang themselves. Some kids laughed. Some kids told them to knock it off. A few just wanted to finish their worksheets. But I had to leave the classroom and I passed the teacher in the hall. She saw I was crying and asked what happened. I was trying to explain while sobbing when the senior came out after chewing the clowns a new one and explained to the teacher what had happened. She actually escorted everyone except the clowns out of the classroom so she wouldn't disturb the other classes around us with how much and how loudly she yelled at them. When he casually laid down his pee-pee on my armchair to impress my girl best friend who was my seatmate. Big in it? He said with a proud smirk looking at my friend. Bruh. I knew a guy, high school student in the late 60s. He and his best friend were very close, but had also dated the same girl. My buddy dated this girl first. Now the friend was dating her. No problems. But they both understood how this could be perceived as a potential friendship ender. They had a joke all planned out. The best friend grabbed some ketchup packets from a fast food restaurant. After lunch, he was sitting in class with the packets torn slightly, tucked unnoticeably in his hand. My buddy had the starter pistol from the track and field team. You see where this is going? My buddy ran into the classroom and shouted, "You can't steal my girl from me. If I can't have her, no one can." He fired the starter pistol, filled with blanks, not bullets, in the direction of his best friend. The friend, who had jumped up from his desk during the shouting, clutched his chest from the fake bullet wound, sending horrifying streaks of red ketchup flying all over his white t-shirt. He collapsed. The look of horror on the face of every student in the room, my buddy said, was amazing. He and his best friend both got detention. Sometimes I think about this story, and I wonder what would happen if high school students tried this in a post-Columbine world. It's crazy how much times change in just a couple of generations. When our science teacher went into the lab closet and he blocked the door with a filing cabinet. Then later in the year he got caught as he was about to put baby oil on the floor. Friend decided to shove his hands into my back pockets and grab my ass. Wasn't wearing a belt. Ended up panting me straight to the floor. I was wearing spandexy type underwear at the time. Caught those on the way down too, and ended up like pulling it down to where my peen sprung out of them. What was bad was worse, as our track coach had just walked in looking for me, and she got a full frontal. Not to mention the class saw everything as well as I tried to pull my pants up, only to realize my peen was out on full display. Didn't even get detention SMH. A friend of mine made gestures of ducking the air in front of what he thought was an older student. Little did he know, it was a very young, new teacher. There was a story here in the UK not so long ago about some kid who was ducking around in class and flicking bits of food at people. He threw a bit of cheese at this kid, who it turned out had severe allergies and ended up going into anaphylactic shock. School mishandled it quite a bit, and the poor kid ended up dying. Not sure if this is exactly a case of the class clown taking it too far. He wasn't to know. But the consequences were dire even so. When he opened a can of tuna and put it in the teacher's bag. This teacher was such a nice lady and only ever tried to help him. Disgusting behavior. We had a younger, not great looking, substitute teacher and everyone was cracking jokes. The sub yelled at the class and the word disrespectful slipped out. This man had the audacity to tell out, "Bruh, your teeth are disrespectful," and got sent to the dean and was later suspended. I had my moments of class clonery. The only one I really regret all these years later was from middle school. My science teacher was telling us his story about dealing with bullies. Back in his day, some punks were messing with him and his friends and he confronted them. At some point in the exchange, he said something like, "Come at me anytime. I'm not hard to find." I'm paraphrasing. For some reason my dumb brain thought not hard to find. Easy to spot. So large that you can see him from anywhere. Looking for a laugh. I spoke up and said, "Why? Were you fat?" There was some muffled laughter. But all I really remember was the teacher topping almost mid-sentence, staring daggers at me, face red as hell. He stopped his story, turned to his desk, and told us curtly to just work on homework. He barely said anything the rest of the class. I felt like absolute hit. It didn't register to me that, yeah, maybe he struggled with his weight as a kid and that was part of the bullying. I really didn't imagine he was a fat kid or anything. It was just a play on the easy to find mental image. Duck. I apologized as best I could at the end of class. But it was tense. At the end of the year he actually awarded me a Best Science Student Award or something like that. You know how they'll do a bunch of student awards for attendance and other shit. I think the fact that he did that means he forgave me. But I still feel like a massive heel every time I think about that. Somebody in my botany class decided to blow up the yak in the room with a firecracker. It sucked because, if they hadn't, I would have been done with my finals a week earlier. When he torched a classmate with a lighter and ear spray, the guy still has scars from it. In 4th grade, we had a kid who disrupted class all the time because he couldn't keep still. It had snowed and we were walking around the room doing an assignment. The teacher went to the class next door for a minute. This kid ran out the door to the field, right outside the door, made a snowball, and threw it in the classroom, hitting a huge light bulb which exploded, sending glass everywhere. Everyone screamed. Teachers came running in. And we never saw that kid again. This was in the 70s, so they probably drugged him up and put him in a different school. In my English class we all tried to be class clowns most of the time. However, the one time my friend took it too far was when at the end of the class, the teacher would go round picking up all the textbooks from each table while we stood waiting. When the teacher came round to collect his textbook, she lifted it up, and my friend had unzipped his trousers and put his wanja through and hidden it under the book. She screamed and everyone else was so shocked at the sight of him stood there with his wanja flopped out on the table. But before anyone could say anything, he looks down and pretends to scream in fright as well, as if he did not know what he was looking at, as he lifts his arm up and proceeds to karate chop his own peen in front of my teacher and entire class. The lad got excluded for a day and got put in a new English class. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.